I'd like to know why do you have to be 40 or older to study Kabbalah?
Oh my gosh, amazing question. Okay, and again, why do you have to be 40 and over to study Kabbalah? It's a great question. And here's the answer. The answer is that when it was in the 1500s, several hundred years ago, that there was a Kabbalist by the name of Shabtai Tzvi, who could do great acts of wonder and use God's names to create all kinds of magic tricks. And he got all kinds of people to follow him, and he declared himself the Messiah, brought people to Israel with him, like I heard in the millions, really brought a lot of people with him. And in the end, he was a joker. He wasn't the real deal. And what happened was the Ashkenazic Jewry, only the Ashkenazic Jewry, put a ban on Kabbalah until someone was 40 years old, married, children, had a stable and grounded life, and therefore would not be making trouble for the world. Meaning, this guy misused it. He started Kabbalah when he was very young, and he was an irresponsible guy, and managed to pull off these things and create whatever. In the end, the big backlash was 40 and over for Kabbalah. Today, it's a little different. First of all, Sephardim never accepted it, so someone who's Sephardi did not accept that ban. And the other thing is that the Kabbalah that people learn today, like the Kabbalah Center with Madonna or Kabbalah that I teach at Aish, is it's not the Kabbalah that's dangerous and is going to have you start going poof and disappearing and reappearing on the other side of the room. Okay, that Kabbalah is no longer available, and so if you go hear a Kabbalah class in the Torah community, from me or from anyone else, they're not going to be teaching you the stuff that's dangerous. The stuff that's dangerous is like rocket science. It's not accessible, and it's even myself. I've been studying now for 22 years. I've been studying Torah. I am over 40, and I do have a wife and kids. And when I study the deeper Kabbalah stuff, the more dangerous stuff, I can't understand it. And even when my rabbi teaches me what it means, I'm barely getting my mind around it. And I would not be dangerous because I'm a very grounded guy, but you can just suffice to say no one's dangerous enough today to even understand that stuff.
Hi, my name is Jenny Always. And my question is about evolution. What do you say to someone who is a strong believer in evolution and says how there's scientific evidence that the world has been around for far longer than we believe?
That's an amazing question. How do you deal with an evolutionist who believes the world's much older than the Torah states? So there's a couple ways to approach it. One of the things is that you explain to them that the Torah doesn't take anything literally, meaning everything in the Torah is a hyperlink. Every word is a hyperlink. You click on that word, it takes you to a whole website to explain what's going on in that word. The Torah says how many days was the world created? 6 days, right? But what's a day? What's the definition of a day? The definition of a day is how many times the earth revolves vis-a-vis the sun. One whole revolution is a day, right? On what day in the book of Genesis, on what day was the sun created? On the 4th day. So you already know that whatever the Torah is calling a day has nothing to do with the definition of a day. You get that? So you already know that. The other things that we know is that when you look at the actual days, it says Yom Echad, the first day, and then it says Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Revi, the 4th day, Yom Chamishi, the 5th day, and then all of a sudden on the 6th day, which day was that? That was the day that Adam, who was this male-female being, was created. Then it says Yom HaShishi. It adds a hey, HaShishi. Not just the 6th day, but the 6th day. That Ha is emphatic. And you know what it's telling us? It's telling us that from now on, time will be counted by human beings. Until then, it's a creator creating a universe. So the Creator creating the universe is doing it in stages, 6 specific stages. The end of that 6th stage is where Adam comes into being. And at the end of that stage, it says, Hashishi, because from now on, time will be 24-hour days. It turns out, and there's a great book on Bantam Book Publishers, produced a book that is written by Dr. Gerald Schroeder, a physicist who witnessed 6 nuclear explosions, who actually works here at Aish Torah. He did the math and figured out that from the edge of the universe, it would actually be 6 days. Remember relativity, meaning the further out you go, the slower time gets, and the closer you are to Earth, the quicker time gets. Meaning, if you could go out to outer space for a year, you'd come back like 1 day older, and we'd all be a year older. Yeah, so things are like super slow out there. So he figured out, he did all the math that at the edge of the universe, that's expanding, from the edge of the universe, he was able to calculate the 6 days. Like it would be 6 days there, what would be 15 billion years here. Now, there's no conflict at all with this 6-day thing, because as I said at the beginning, that anything the Torah says anyway is a hyperlink. And you want to hear something amazing that's cool is if someone's really addicted to like water and then like algae and then it got legs and became fish, which became amphibians, which became, look at the Torah. Look actually at the order of events in Genesis. It's exactly that order. It starts with water, then comes land. It even mentions Pangea. Pangea is when all the continents were together. It mentions Pangea in Genesis. It then talks about, plant. Then it talks about fish. Then it talks about fowl. Then it talks about animals. And then it talks about humans. Now, does it mean that we are just advanced algae? No. God created humans. But it goes exactly according to that level. And one other thing to share is how can we say Adam is that Adam, meaning Adam, but don't forget Adam means male-female. It's a male-female thing that God created. She was split off from this male-female thing called Adam. Adam's male and female. So Adam, how can we say that that man has only been on earth for 6,000 years when in fact we have Homo sapien fossils that look just like us, that are dated much older. Yet when you look in Genesis, once again, look in Genesis, you'll see that Adam is the only creation in the Torah that has a double creation. Everything else is like God said, let there be plants. There were plants. God said, let there be animals. Animals. Yeah, with humans, it's God formed man out of the earth, and then it says, later it says, and God blew into his nostrils a living soul. Nishmas chaim, that's the word neshama, soul. A living soul. Which means that it's very possible that there were Homo sapiens on Earth, cave-dwelling type things, that looked just like us, but it didn't have a neshama. Because what is the difference between you and a primate? If we put an orangutan into an MRI and put you in an MRI, are you really going to come out that differently? Not really. Not that different. Not even in the brain. Not that different. What's unique about you is your neshama. So it could be argued, and really just looking at Genesis, it could be argued that there were Homo sapiens during that expansive 6th day, but then later, nishmas chayim gets blown into the nostrils, and that becomes Adam. And you see it's different with Adam. Adam's creative. Adam's got higher aspirations. And look where you are right now. You're in a $30 million building. That's not going to get anyone more survival, right? What's survivals, right? Survival and reproduction. No one's going to better reproduce because of this $30 million invested here. No one's going to be more fit to survive. The opposite. Putting money into something that's purely spiritual, like Aish Torah, it gives you less money to survive. Maybe they should have put it into a cure for cancer. Maybe they should have put it in for feeding more starving people. And the answer is that we have this whole other aspiration. And that same aspiration, don't forget, guys, you're floating about 8 stories over the Kotel Plaza. It's all just human ingenuity, which is higher aspiration. And I'll conclude your answer with, I was sitting on a plane, right out that window. If you look right up there, you see Mount Scopus University. You see that big tower up there? It'd be great to see it on that. But see that? That's Hebrew University. I get on an airplane flying to teach in New York, and sitting next to me is one of the chief anthropologists who was emphasizing in paleontology. She's a professor at Hebrew University. She's sitting next to me on the plane. So it's like the rabbi and the evolutionist sitting next to each other. So the truth is, I just wanted to go to sleep because there was a red eye. But I had one major question I wanted to ask her. So first I just kind of got to know her. I was friendly. And then I just wanted to ask this question. Then I wanted to pass out for 10 hours. So I asked her this question. I asked her, according to your knowledge, is there any structure on Earth, a man-made structure? I'm not talking about cave paintings or some kind of primitive tools. I'm talking about a structure, because human beings build. Everywhere we go, we build. Is there a man-made structure that's older than 6,000 years? That's all I want to know from her. And she just sat there thinking and thinking and thinking. And after a while, she finally looks at me and she says, I never really thought about that before, but I don't think there's one. No. There's no structures built. No structures are built older than 6,000 years. I said to her, well, isn't that kind of interesting? Given the whole, Adam's created, but later he gets the soul. And the Torah says that was, a little less than 6,000 years ago. Isn't that interesting? She says, I never thought about it, but that is interesting. And I gave her my card, and then I went like this. And I slept for the next 10 hours. But I got an email from her about 6 weeks later asking if I would be the rabbi at her children's wedding, to lead the wedding for her children. Yeah, which she would have done. She would have definitely just done the rent a rabbi. You have to have a rabbi, but they just rent a rabbi. The rabbi comes in, 10 minutes, does the little ceremony, and you pay him a couple hundred shekels, and he walks off. But she's like, I want you to do I want you to do the wedding. And bring your guitar.
My name is Khalida.
Hi, Khalida.
I just want to know the Torah's take on animal cruelty.
How what?
The Torah's take on animal cruelty.
Oh, yeah.
And being a vegetarian, and the main differences between kosher meat and non-kosher meat, besides for the way that it's shachted.
Wow. Okay, that's a big question. So the being a vegetarian's, certainly okay in Judaism. That's fine to be a vegetarian. I have a son who's a vegetarian, and who's a very, very observant kid, a serious scholar. He's vegetarian. Being a vegetarian is cool. Being mean to animals is cruel and is wrong. It's forbidden in the Torah. With agribusiness, this is greatly ignored to an uncomfortable level. There are many observant Jews who have chosen to no longer eat meat because of agribusiness. They have just figured out that the volume of meat, the volume of animals necessary to feed the world, even the kosher world, is a volume that's beyond treating animals humanely. And so there are many who have chosen to be vegetarians just for that reason alone. Is meat still kosher even if the animal was mistreated? For example, let's say you like chicken, but the chickens were kept in cages that were just, these chicken cages that they ship them around in on trucks. So, they put 10 chickens in a cage that probably should have had 3 or 4. Do you want to eat that chicken? So I don't particularly have much of an appetite for a chicken who is dealing with that for several hours. They're normally not dealing with that for several hours, but even in their giant coops, they usually are in giant coops. Those giant coops are way overcrowded, in my opinion. Do I still eat the chicken? Yeah, because it's still kosher. You're still allowed to eat it. Even if you're totally mean to a cow, it does not disqualify its slaughter. Okay, its slaughter if it's kosher slaughter, it's still good. But there are those who it affects their sentiments towards, cruelty to animals. Yeah. So in general, if an animal gets ill, it's usually not kosher. However, if a cow, the rule is a year. If an animal can live a year with whatever it's got, it's still kosher. Okay? If it can live a year, it's considered still a viable animal. But a Jew is not allowed to eat an animal that is not viable. And there's even strictures to thorns that might have gotten into its lungs when it was picking and pecking. And so the word glot, you know what glot means? It means no holes in the lungs. So they actually take the lungs out and check them and fill them with air and check for leakage. If it's leakage, it's not glot. Can you still eat it? Sure, totally kosher. But someone who wants to eat glot kosher, that's why it's funny. Sometimes you'll see a pizza shop. They're not selling chicken, they're selling pizza. And it'll say glot kosher. What's that supposed to mean? They were like, there's no holes in the lungs of the milk, of the cheese. And people just use the word glot. But now you know what glot means. Glot means the lungs, even the lungs had no issues. Healthy lungs. Anyway, so that's it. It's got to be viable for a year. Has to be slaughtered in a specific way with a specific knife that's got absolutely no nicks, so that the knife slides right through without the animal really noticing. Super sharp knife, and once it cuts off the windpipe, so then the brain already goes out. You ever hyperventilated? Yeah, if you ever hyperventilated, you're like seeing stars. You're still getting oxygen, but not the amount that you'd normally be getting. So once you cut the windpipe to an animal, it's lights out. Plenty of nerves moving around. A cow can still bounce around for a while after that. But once the windpipe's cut, the brain's dead.
This one's a little deeper. It's back to like the creation in 7 days.
Yeah.
If God is an infinite being, why did he have to rest on the seventh day?
Why do you? You're saying have to rest. You're
Why
charging the
did he?
question.
Why
It does
did
not
he?
say he had to rest.
He didn't have to. Why did he?
Why did he rest? What God created ultimately was Shabbos, and when it says he rested, it means he wasn't creating new things. Now he's just sustaining the world. Get that? He's resting from creating new things. That was it. 6 days he created all the stuff that's going to be in the world, and seventh day he rested from creating new stuff that would be in the world. So we don't have like we don't have like these giant cool looking things that fly around in Avatar and stuff. Like he didn't make those. Okay, he just stopped at that point. Whatever he created, done. And then he created this seventh day that was just going to be a 24-hour period of purpose for life. Because God knows what he's doing. He knows he's creating a world where you're going to have to work because you got to pay for your family. And therefore, you're going to be running some gerbil wheel. Everyone's got to run some gerbil wheel. Okay, I have a fun gerbil wheel. Look where I get to be and look what I get to do. It's amazing. But in the end, I got to come in. I got to run the gerbil wheel. So he knows people are going to run a gerbil wheel. But the thing is, if they just run the gerbil wheel 24/7, they would lose the purpose of creation. Why God did it. But by creating a whole 24-hour non-gerbil wheel day, so by creating that day, human beings would have a chance to get in touch with the purpose of creation, which is to connect to God. So can you connect the other 6 days? Yeah, you can, but it's a challenge. Look at Gentiles. Most Gentiles, if they want to connect like that, they live 24/7 Shabbos. Who am I discussing? Monks. Monks always live there. They're on the hilltop, celibate, fasting, because you got to be celibate, otherwise you have kids, you got to pay for them, which means you're going to have to go for work. You're going to have to have a car, you're going to have to have a house, you're going to have to have all these things. Celibate, so there's no kids involved, and there are fasting and all kinds of other disconnecting from the world. They renounce all worldly possessions. They are supported by the monastery. They are not involved in commerce or anything in the material world. Now, God did not create the world for us to divorce our bodies and become monks in mountains. He created the world so that we would be interfaced and engaged in physicality. And especially being fruitful and multiplying, which means you're involved sexually, which means you're involved with children, which means you're involved with commerce. and paying for that. And the reason why God did that was in order that we would be godly in the physical, not just floating up in the clouds with God, but being in the physical world, engaged and still being godly. But it's a challenge. 6 days of challenge, 1 day, no challenges. 6 days, we have the challenge of drawing God into our daily lives, which may be university, may be work, may be all kinds of things that we're doing. 6 days of the challenge of engaging God of being engaged with God while engaged with physicality, and then 1 whole day of being disengaged from the physical world. It's like monk day for Judaism. 1 day of disengaging from the physical world so that we can have a direct, more simple relationship with God, which is Shabbat. But God didn't need rest. God never rests.
What do you say if the commandment of respecting one's parents goes against you personally trying to be observant? Like, for example, if you want to fast, but your parents don't want you to for personal reasons.
Right. Or they don't want you to do Shabbat, or they don't want you to learn in yeshiva in Israel, or all those things. So, first of all, I just want to mention that if your parents had any idea how much good it was for you, if your parents had any idea how much good it was for them that you learned in yeshiva, or that you did Shabbat, or that you fasted on the fast day, or whatever, they would chain you to a yeshiva table. The only reason any parent would be upset about their child learning and becoming literate as a Jew is because they have no idea about Judaism. So, and by the way, I'll give you a little trick for this. The next time they get upset with you because you're trying to observe something, so you say to them, it's passive aggressive, but it works, okay? It's a cheap shot, but this is what you do. You know, if your parents ever get upset about one level of observance you're doing, you say to them, gee, my observing this fast really seems to be bringing up a lot for you. Maybe you'd like to talk about it. Try that with your parents. My wanting to like be literate by studying in yeshiva and like really learning what it is to be a Jew is really bringing up a lot of reactions for you. Maybe you'd like to speak about that. And if not with me, maybe there's someone you'd like to go see. They'll be like, whoa. But you just keep pulling that out, and they'll just be like, ah. You say like, or you could say, wow, I had no idea you studied in yeshiva. And they're like, I didn't. I said, so how am I supposed to understand your advice if you only know your side and not the yeshiva side? Like, had you been to yeshiva and understood what's going on in yeshivas, so then, okay, I understand. You feel it's better I wouldn't study in yeshiva. But the fact is that it's a little hard to be intellectual here and hear advice from someone who has no clue about what it would mean for me to study Torah. Anyways, those are tricks. Now, as far as how you deal with the honoring of one's parents, in the 10 Commandments, it does not say fast. What are you talking about, like Yom Kippur or something like that?
No, like a smaller fast. But it could not for like religious reasons.
Yeah, smaller.
I'm saying for a different reason, not for a religious reason.
Just fasting?
Well, it could be like a different kind of issue why they don't want me to fast. Not because of a religious reason. Let's say it's like because of weight issue or something like that.
Oh, and it's a fast day?
They don't want you to fast.
So if it's a minor fast day and your parents don't want you to fast on a minor fast day,
yes,
that's a serious question. Then it could be you have to honor your parents. Because it doesn't say anywhere in the 10 Commandments about fasting. But it does say to honor your parents. So
you don't fast.
Well, major fast, you'd fast anyway. Yom Kippur, the Torah says you got to fast. So it doesn't matter what your parents say. Tisha B'Av, our rabbis teach us that that's a fast that you would blow off your parents' will in order to fast. A doctor may say that you have to eat even on Yom Kippur. Doctors may say you have to eat even on Yom Kippur, and you have to eat in measured quantities. You don't eat like, it's not time for a sub sandwich. Meaning you measure the quantities, has to be more than 9 minutes. It's a whole thing how you do it. But in general, when it's a Torah commandment or even a rabbinic law, we go with the Torah commandment, the rabbinic law, over our parents. When it's in more, there's times to be lenient. You always want to be connected to a rabbi who can tell you when to be more lenient and go with honoring your parents. But specifically, we learn, our sages teach us that the reason why the fourth commandment is keep Shabbos and the fifth commandment is honor your parents is to tell you that Shabbos takes precedent over honoring your parents. But it's not just telling you Shabbos. What it's telling you is if a parent ever, for some reason, had the insane thought that you shouldn't be doing a commandment, so you're always to side with the commandment over your parents. And there's several other places where parents aren't allowed to say anything. One of those is to study Torah. If a parent doesn't want a kid to study Torah, but the kid desires to study Torah, the kid has no mitzvah to honor the parent. Also, where the kid studies Torah, let's say I want my son to study here, and my son wants to study there. I can state my claim, but he has no mitzvah to listen to me. And the last is soulmates. If my kid decides that someone's his soulmate, and it's someone that I would never have wanted for my family, which, by the way, I wouldn't be snobby like that, but let's just say I was a snob, yeah? You're not bringing that kid in my family, yeah? So my kid can completely ignore me, and he will not be breaking the 10 commandments of honor, the one commandment of honor your parents. You get that? So meaning when it's real and it's love, and as long as they're Jewish, so it doesn't matter what your parents say. I mean, you should take it into mind. You should definitely speak to a rabbi. Say to the rabbi, my parents are against this. What's going on here? Am I making a mistake? Do that. But if the rabbi says, hey, it all checks out. This is your parents' issue, not yours. So then you can actually go ahead and marry that person without the blessing of your parents. But obviously, someone wants to be careful and not set up a family feud and all kinds of hell, because it's kind of hard to be married to someone when your parents are making war, which can happen. That's just the way it is. And shalom. Thank you.